Hey folks, it's me, Frank. It's him, JB. JB, you should be here. Why aren't you here?
Yeah, I guess you're right about that one. It's one of those deals where the family stuff, weekend in St. Pete, little overlap there. So I'm sorry I'm not there in Canton, but I can't wait to see your outfit tomorrow night and tune into the
Outfits.
what? Oh, double bonus, huh?
Yep, well, Twitter spoke. I mean, we have to follow Twitter, don't we? Unless it's a close call for the Secretary's Cup. Then we kind of give the benefit of the doubt to the Secretary's Cup, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
But, hey, we got to predict the game. And I standing here right now, ready to go to intro, I don't even know who I'm picking yet. So you're going to have to educate me on these teams. We're going to have to talk about a lot here. There's a lot of traffic in the background. It's going to be an interesting show, to say the least. Don't worry.
Yeah, I guess that stadium's right next to the highway, huh?
It in fact is. 77 runs adjacent to us right now. So look it up on your maps. And in the meantime, guess what? This is In the Huddle. Let me step out of the way, JB. If you give me a second here, I'm going to step out of the way and let folks see a windy Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium here. And this is the surface on which the Stagg Bowl will be played tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. It's going to be a fun time. The position I'm in here is actually the position we'll be taking for the pregame show on D3Football.com. And we'll be doing a bunch of things on that show. We've got some fun stuff I'll tell you about in a second with interviews with players. Also, we'll have the All-America team announcements and the Gagliardi Trophy announcement. Those 5 finalists are waiting to find out who won the Gagliardi Trophy for 2021. You have your guesses. We'll see if you're right. You prognosticate decently in general. I have not found out who the winner is. I've asked not to have that information for once this go around, so I will be as surprised as everybody else on this one, JB. But first things first, I give you the first word. Semifinals are in the books. One went the way we thought, kind of. The other, we sort of blew. Go ahead and tell us your view here of the semifinals.
Well, I mean, yeah, the biggest surprise was the fact that Mary Hardin Baylor not only won, but they won in pretty dominant fashion over Whitewater. And Kyle King and Brandon Jordan hooked up a couple times for some touchdown passes. The Warhawks had no answer for Brandon. He just, 11 catches, 164 yards, I think. He just devastated that secondary, and the offensive line of Mary Hardin Baylor, which was kind of a question back in the spring season, really seems to have coalesced and gelled, and they dominated the line of scrimmage. And this game was not close at all. We were predicting close games for both of these, and 24-7 when at the end of the day, Whitewater just didn't have enough. Maybe Quinn Maynard's was there, it would have been a little different, but he's too busy plowing guys over in the NFL. So different day and age. And Mary Hardin Baylor, man, I know they're kind of relishing this underdog role, and they will be an underdog in this championship game too. But the last couple of games, they have looked fantastic, and North Central is going to have their hands full.
So first off, let's talk conditions here. Generally, as I said, it is windy here today. We are in a kind of a wind zone because of the adjacency to the highway, but it's supposed to die down. Yeah. We're supposed to get rain today. The rain for tomorrow has been wiped off the forecast for now, but rain today. The temperature without the wind is around 59 degrees today in Canton, Ohio.
Balmy.
Yeah, but tomorrow it will be a high of closer to 45 and a low around 30. So game time temperature should be around 38 degrees, 37 degrees around kickoff, which is not Cortland cold from a couple of weeks ago when I was out there and froze my butt off. But let's just call it somewhat in between Cortland and Mount Union, between rounds 2 and 3. If you remember, I did go jacketless for the pregame show at least at Mount Union, but then obviously resorted to getting that back on later on. So it's going to be weather that is, I think, amenable to players that are wearing pads and long sleeves and stuff like that. However, these guys are not going to wear their sleeves probably, and it will be slightly cold for them out here. Speaking of the games from last week that you have talked about, let's get up our scoreboard page and just review them. We cannot run highlights, obviously, because of ESPN rights issues. But Mary Hardin-Baylor winning against Whitewater 24-7. Alex Pete was shut down in the game pretty much to 20 rushes for 43 yards. That was a surprise to a lot of people, including me. Kyle King, 19 for 28, 248, 2 passing touchdowns, both to Brandon Jordan, and 11 receptions for Jordan. That's 164 yards total. Mark McGrath, who was our guest on the semifinal preview show, 10 tackles. Akeem Jackson, though, the linebacker for UMHB, with 11 tackles, including one for loss and an interception. Yep. And on the other side of the brackets, North Central beats Mount Union 26-13. Braxton Plunk only 19 for 33, I should say, 204 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Ethan Greenfield, though, for North Central, 31 rushes, 194 yards. Luke Lanen, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdown. And Mason McMillan and Cordell Ford from Mount Union each had 11 tackles, but in a losing cause. That leads up to the Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, Canton, Ohio. It's Mary Hardin-Baylor versus North Central. Now, earlier in the week, JB and I got to actually ask some questions of the two head coaches, and that is Jeff Thorne of North Central and Pete Fredenberg of Mary Hardin-Baylor. Let's play some questions from that discussion, about 10 minutes in length here. Not all of the questions we got to ask. We do appreciate their time with us and the rest of the media. But here were our discussions with Jeff Thorne and Pete Fredenberg. JJ, thank you. Coach, thanks all season for the access and availability that you've made, especially with what your family has been facing with Peyton at Michigan State and everything else. Good luck to him as things continue. First off, kind of elaboration on a question that Pat had asked you that appeared this morning on his podcast about Andrew Kaminsky. 2019, he had a lot of receptions and touchdowns. 2021, not as many. Which season do you think he played more of an important role for your team, though, despite stats? And are you happy about the fact that the Ghilardi Trophy voters saw fit to make him a finalist despite the stats dropping off this year?
Yeah. First, Frank, let me say thank you for the kind words, but also thank you for everything Division III football does for our division. Without you guys, it's so much fun to be able to learn about other programs, and it wouldn't happen without the work you guys do. So thank you for that. To answer your question, I would say his importance this year, without the same kind of numbers, without the same kind of production, I do think has been even more meaningful because of how he's brought Luke Lanen along and continued to bring D'Angelo Hardy along. Between he and Blake Williams and Corey Blair, Matt Metz, we really have a veteran group of receivers. But Andrew in particular, and D'Angelo went through a pretty brutal life event. Second day of camp, his mom dies suddenly. And Andrew was right there by his side, as were the other guys. But I just think Andrew has been such a steadying force for D'Angelo, and certainly for Luke, taking him under his wing, watching film with him, and never, ever getting frustrated with lack of touches, lack of targets. He understands our team's a little different this year, and all he wants to do is win. And whatever, he can bring to the table to give us a better chance of winning the game, that's what Andrew Kaminsky is going to do, and he's never going to complain about it.
I'd like to sort of continue the discussion on the defense, because unfortunately in a box score, as a cornerback, you don't necessarily get credit for, basically keeping a guy like Wayne Ruby almost a non-factor. I mean, your corners played excellent. Was this sort of a schematic thing where you guys were trying to do certain matchup type situations or certain zone coverages to take him out of the ball game? Because, as a former defensive back, that to me really stood out as one of the biggest elements of that game. And I would just be curious to get your thoughts on the same.
Yeah, he's incredibly talented, but so are the other receivers Mount Union has. That offense is really dynamic, but he's really, I think, the head of the snake for him from the receiving core standpoint. So we certainly wanted to always have an idea where he was. And, we're really, really fortunate. We've got, in my opinion, the best corner in the country, Jake Beasley. We give him the toughest assignment week in and week out. He's our boundary corner, but, he's a guy we can move around. And he came in as a receiver in 2017 and played a lot as a freshman as a receiver. And we made the decision to move him to corner in 2018. And I think it's one of the best decisions that we've ever made as a coaching staff, because it's given our defensive staff a lot of flexibility to get creative when you've got a guy with that kind of talent. The measurables he has, he's 6'3" and 200 pounds and runs in the 4.4s. And I mean, when you watch him jump, it takes a while for him to come down. He just kind of levitates. It's pretty impressive. But we're blessed to have a kid like that you can, hey, go play man coverage. Last 2019 run when we played Mount Union, Justin Hill had like 200 and some yards at halftime. And we stuck Jake on him in the second half. He followed him everywhere, and he had 2 catches in the second half. And that was really the secret of overcoming what we faced in 2019 at Mount Union. So Jake Beasley is really the key to our defense that allows us to do all the things that we do. And certainly our defensive line is great, and our other DBs and linebackers, but Jake is really, he's special.
Coach, first I want to thank you and Mary Hardin-Baylor for all the hospitality when I was down there for the Hardin-Simmons game. It was good to see you, and great to see your daughter Corey and how well she is doing. So great. I hopefully get to see everybody in Canton very soon here. First question for you. Kyle King has gone through some interesting injuries, health issues, et cetera. We've talked about him on our show with him and whatnot. For him to bounce back the last 2 games, especially the way he has, how has that happened to that degree?
Well, Kyle is a tremendous competitor and has a wonderful work ethic. And the times that he was kind of on the sidelines and going through his turf toe issues, you just had to fight to keep him off the field. And he kept saying he was fine, but we knew that he was not 100%. But when he finally came back, and I think he's had tremendous outings the last 2 games. He's just really a fierce competitor and a great player, and he loves the university, loves this program, and he's a great teammate and a great leader.
And Coach, second question for you on the other side of the ball, and this is kind of similar to a question I asked Coach Thorne about Andrew Kaminsky. It's interesting how Kaminsky's numbers kind of dropped off, but his leadership, it seemed to exude itself throughout the 2021 season. I could say the same about Jefferson Fritz, whose numbers seem to be good, but 2019 to 2021 might be a little numbers drop off for him, although he does more things on the field than I could ever imagine doing. How important, though, has his leadership, his maturity, growth, et cetera, been to getting your team back to the Stagg Bowl this year?
I've never coached anybody more of a leader. He's a dynamic person that wants this team to succeed. He does it physically himself in a role as a leader. He gives great effort and concentration and focus in everything that he does involved with his football team. He is just a great student of the game and loves practice, loves games, loves competition. He's just a tremendous role model for for all of us as a player and as a leader. And we're just thrilled that he's been part of this program. I think he's been an All-American for all 3 years that he's played. So obviously he brings a lot to our program.
Hey, Coach, congratulations on making it back to the Stagg Bowl. I know my friend and co-host Frank Rossi will be looking to bedazzle everybody with some new fancy coats on the sideline there.
We're anxious to see that.
Oh, yeah, we all are. It's must-see for sure. But on a more serious note, obviously, 2020 kind of being an unprecedented year in the history of college football, but you guys were one of about 100 D3 programs that had the opportunity to play some games in the springtime. And I believe the Stagg Bowl is going to be your 20th game in the calendar year. What were some of the challenges to kind of get through that long kind of grind, and what sort of things has it presented as far as opportunities or helping make this team into who they are?
Well, when you look back, obviously you always have 20/20 vision looking back, but it turned out to be very beneficial for our football team. It was really hard. It was really difficult and a challenge. But in the fall, we were able to really work spring training. So we had, I can't remember how many days or how many weeks, but we were actually able to get on the field and have young freshmen grow and develop into the system, and then turn around in the spring and play 5 very competitive games. Obviously, the fall helped. It was just the spring and the fall and the fall and the spring, which was totally weird. But it really, looking back, it was really beneficial for our guys. We had several guys that were on time to graduate, and they put some things off and were able to come back for another year. So it all just was beneficial in the long run. I know having the COVID, all of that year was so horrible, but we worked it to where it was very beneficial for our football team.
Appreciate their allowing us to ask those questions. JJ Nekloff did a great job moderating, as always, from the ODAC, member of the committee here, the selection committee. JV, you've honed in on this question quite a bit over the last few months about the 20 games. 20 and 21 basically is one of the slogans for Mary Hardin-Baylor to win 20 games in 2021. They have won 19. They are one game away from that goal right now. And so as we begin to transition here, and we'll look at the bracket as it lays, I'll let you begin to talk about this matchup and what you think about it. Let's not predict it quite yet, but begin to preview it as we go to the tail of the tape. Take us through it.
Well, not surprisingly, these are two of the biggest and most complete teams in the nation as far as Division III goes. I mean, they have size on the line. They've got size at receiver and linebacker, defensive back positions. The tight end for North Central, I mean, that guy is huge. So you're going to see an exceptional level of athleticism and ability. I know sometimes people joke around about, D3 is just glorified high school football. Yeah, watch these guys on Friday night and figure out if you could even last a play or two with the size and strength on this field. These are just really impressive programs. As you can see, they're undefeated. Little bit more offensive firepower on the North Central side, leans more towards the running game. Ethan Greenfield, who I realized after the fact actually had 190 yards, not 194. I mean, okay, 4 yards, big deal. That guy is like a bowling ball, but with a tremendous amount of speed, hard to take down. He is going to be a problem for the linebacking core of Mary Hardin-Baylor. But then again, we thought maybe Alex Pete of Whitewater would be as well, and they held him to about 40 yards on 20 carries. So you can see defensively, both of these teams are almost mirror images. UMHB allows a couple more rushing yards a game and a little less on the passing side. Another mirror image, Kyle King and Luke Lennon. Yeah, these guys sound like Marvel, superhero characters. Who are their, you've got like Spider-Man against, well, Iron Man or something here. But
Captain America.
32 passing touchdowns, 11 rush touchdowns. Kyle has only thrown 2 interceptions compared to Luke's 7, but he's only a freshman. Kyle is a senior, although he'll be back for a 5th year, we understand. And then really, Frank, the biggest difference, turnover margin, and maybe this plays a role in tomorrow's game. Mary Hardin-Baylor has been a lot more opportunistic. Maybe that's their schedule. I don't know. And maybe, with the amount of running plays that North Central runs, they're more apt to potentially fumble the ball or so on and so forth. That to me is the biggest difference between these two squads when you look at them just purely statistically. Very similar in many ways, but that's a big difference, and we'll see if that comes into play on Friday night.
So in general here, more offense for North Central by 89 yards. Defense pretty much a tie. The quarterback's pretty much a tie. UMHB on the turnover ratio, definitely an advantage there, so it balances out that offensive number scenario. And the points, the differentials are really what I would call a pick 'em if you had to really get there. Yeah. 4.3-point differential, which is nothing when it comes down to it, especially in a neutral site.
A field goal and a PIT, yeah.
Our corrections department did not catch the fact that I had number 3 instead of number 2, and that was actually a fat finger that did that. Now we've corrected that on our front page here. Number 2, Mary Hardin.
It depends on what poll you're talking about. Yeah.
That too, actually. And then you have all those slashes when they try to go with all the polls. But again, JB, we'll put this up one more time in case you couldn't see the scores on it as we transition to the tail of the tape. Okay. I don't know who to pick. And I want you to sell it to me both ways here before we actually do predict. Mount Union. They're not going to win this game. I can guarantee you that today. So there you go. Yeah, Mary Hardin-Baylor can win if. North Central can win if. Sell it to me here either way.
Well, at the end of the day, Frank, football always comes down to, the trenches, who can win the line of scrimmage, right? And so far in these playoffs, the Mary Hardin-Baylor offensive line has dominated the line of scrimmage, and even against defenses like Whitewater, who are theoretically, at least statistically anyway, just as highly ranked as North Central, and similar. Size, defensive line. I mean, there are some outstanding athletes on North Central like Gilroy at defensive end and others. But so far this playoff run, Mary Hardin-Baylor has won the line of scrimmage, and that's been the biggest difference. And that's allowed Kyle King to have some time in the pocket to pick apart defenses with his 6'6" gigantic, Megatron wide receiver and Brandon Jordan. There's other, skill players like KJ Miller, Cremera, the running back. I mean, they have so many weapons. See, these two guys, they were my semifinal MVPs because they were just outstanding, a pair. And these two guys are going to have a big say on this game. Now, note that Brandon wears number 21. There's a guy on North Central who wears 21 named Jake Beasley, who we heard Coach Thorne talk about. He's a 6'3" boundary corner who is probably going to be covering Jordan all game. So it's 21 versus 21. Aside from the offensive line matchup, this is going to be the key to this game, is whether or not King can find Jordan in some one-on-one situations and whether or not Beasley can bat the ball away, maybe come up with a rare interception. Tanner Raines, the place kicker for North Central, seems to be an outstanding weapon, and he had, I believe, I think about 8 points in the Mount Union game. He was able to kick in that crazy wind, even though he kind of benefited from a false start penalty, pushed him back, but he was able to better judge the ball and kind of JB golf shot it into shank it into in between the uprights. But Akeem Jackson, another outstanding player. He's going to have a huge impact. He was a big reason why Alex Pete was bottled up in the semifinal game. He had 11 tackles I think an interception as well. He's going to need to really key in on this Greenfield, because as we saw in our semifinal watch party with Coach Donaldson from Heidelberg and Coach Paul from ONU, the Cardinals love to run power, and so they are going to be coming right at you the whole game. And guys like Jackson and company are going to really need to be prepared for that, wrap up. If they can stuff the run, then UMHB has a huge chance to pull off the proverbial upset in this one.
Okay, it's time. Who do you got, and by how much?
Well, as much as these offenses average, close to 500 yards per game, you're not going to see that on Friday night. These defenses are just too good. I think this is going to be a close one, sort of like a 21-17 type of game. But I've been kind of going with the Cardinals the whole time, and I know the Mary Hardin Baylor faithful enjoyed proving me wrong last week, so I'm going to do them a favor, and I will pick against them again, and hopefully that might be some good luck on their side, because honestly, it's really hard to pick this game, because there's so much to like about both of these teams, but unfortunately someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. I just feel like with the sort of the overall package that North Central brings to the table, that they're going to repeat as national champions, and we'll see.
Yeah, one thing I want to say right off the bat here is, no matter what happens here, we find these two programs to be two of the classiest programs out there in Division III in terms of the power teams out there. Whitewater, Mount Union, all these teams just are classy as heck. So when we make picks like this, I just want to say, and it's tough to say this in Week 16 suddenly, but I just want to make it clear to everybody, this is by no means a personal attack on your team or who you are. I enjoyed immensely our discussions and our interactions yesterday with both North Central and Mary Hardin Baylor throughout the season, all of our interactions with teams that we've picked against and picked for. So please, as teams, do not take this personally and use it as bulletin board material as much as you want, by all means, and I know you will. Having said that,
absolutely.
Here was my struggle with this whole thing. I said that Whitewater was going to be the winner of this entire thing. And the team that knocked off Whitewater is Mary Hardin Baylor. Now, either I abandon entirely that side of the bracket, or I basically give credit to Mary Hardin Baylor as being even a better team than the team I thought was going to win the entire thing, knowing that North Central was likely the team to come through on the right side of the bracket. And I watched a North Central team that did dominate and overpower Mount Union last week, which is no small feat. We watched it together in the watch party, as you said. And that makes it really tough, because you look at that game, and it was an interesting game in rhythm. But there was one moment in the game that I still am keyed in on, and we've heard the report that he's fine, but I don't know. I really don't know Luke Lanon's real condition, to be honest with you. His right shoulder, I believe it was, when he dove for that end zone midway through the game, he was not the same quarterback for the rest of that game after that point, JB.
That's true, yep.
And Mary Hardin Baylor watched that game alongside everybody else, or at least watched the recording of it later on. They know what that situation is. They'll probably, knowing that, try to key in on the run more so, and with their size and speed's a big deal on defense in a game like this, they may be able to take that dimension out and force Lanon to have to win this game with an arm that I don't know he can throw with as much as he would want to. Now, they're going to do everything possible, North Central probably, if he is experiencing ill effects still from that, to cortisone it up or whatever else you want to call it out there. We were talking to Will Bellamy about his condition and what happened around that Utica game. And, things happen to get players ready, and that's their prerogative, ultimately, the school's prerogative. So maybe he will be okay for the game enough to get through it and throw as well as he does and run as well as he does as well. But I got to say, with that slight issue, and with what I said earlier about Wisconsin Whitewater being the team I thought that was going to win the whole thing, Mary Hardin-Baylor, I didn't see myself saying this at the beginning of the season, to be honest with you folks, will win the national championship in 2021 by a score of 28-24. That's my final four. So
that wouldn't surprise me.
Hardin-Baylor. It's a little bit surprising to say it right now, but it's a team that you could pick against all week long and look like a damn fool, and we have at times, folks, for that fact. We both have. Look at this last week. But, you know, I still wait it out, and it's one of those scenarios that I think you have to give them a slight edge here, because you got the winner of the 2018 Stagg Bowl, the winner of the 2019 Stagg Bowl. These are both experienced teams. There's a lot of overlap with the players on both those teams, maybe less with Mary Hardin-Baylor, but still some key components. Do remember 2018. And I do like the looseness of both teams coming into this game. We had a little fun with them yesterday. You'll see tomorrow in the pregame show where we let a couple players interview each other, and we got some odd results from that you'll probably find comical.
That's great.
We'll just leave it at that right now, but you'll want to tune in for that. Final thoughts. What's your takeaway from my pick there and my reasoning?
Well, speaking of 20 and 21, Frank, this is your 20th game. Unbelievable. You must be exhausted. I'm just tired thinking about it, and that's really cool. And it's been a great season. It's been a great year of D3 football, to be honest. Going all the way back to the spring. I don't know what this is, like our 54th or 5th episode at this point. It's been an epic year. It's been a lot of fun. Covering all these games, getting to know all these different teams and players and programs and what have you. And I think, tomorrow night's going to be a great, kind of a capstone to what's been a kind of a wild ride. I mean, we didn't really have a season in 2020 except for a handful of games. And then we had the sort of protracted, spring season, and now this full year. And for the most part, we've gotten through a lot of it pretty much COVID-free, which is great. And so not a lot of people thought that was going to be the case. I know there were a lot of naysayers in the national and other media about that. But, hey, we made it. Tomorrow night's going to be a great game between two of the best programs in the country. And I can't wait to, pull up a seat or a phone or wherever, Jen takes me and catch it.
Well, we want to thank the good folks here at the Hall of Fame and Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium for helping us get the show off the ground. Their Wi-Fi actually worked here. We are having a little bit of a wire internet issue, but they're already on top of that for us. We appreciate that for tomorrow night. They're first class here. You saw the photo that JB posted on Twitter of overhead on the stadium. That was actually our photo. That was not a stock photo. It was somebody else taking it. That is the view from the press box here. And it's a great view at that. But I will be on the sidelines, getting a little cold, but shining up the place a little bit. Go ahead.
Hey man, did you hit 1,000 yet? Because I know I contributed to your Sager Strong cancer fundraiser. I mean, I know you're raising funds and awareness for with the whole Sparkle Man jacket. Maybe tell people a little bit about that if they want to contribute.
Yeah, we are close to 1,000. We'd love to get to $1,000, and I want to thank Patty and Larry Weaver, who I think gave a $500 donation. If my addition was correct, and I was tracking and seeing what was going on, and so thanks to them at 13 North Restaurant in Malta, New York, for those that are in that area. Great food and great people, obviously, to give to that. So remember, it's a Craig Sager tribute that we're doing with those Sager Strong outfits, we call them, the audacious sparkly jackets and whatnot. And we have two of them, one that was bought for last year that was unused, so we're going to use it, and another one that we bought that it's fitting ultimately for where we are, and you'll see what I mean by that. But we are trying to raise money as well for cancer research through the Sager Strong Foundation. Go to Twitter and look up our tweets. You'll see the link to our Facebook fundraiser for that, and please do get us over $1,000, and it makes it worth doing it for everybody involved. And again, thank you, JB, for the donation and for bringing that up as well. Folks, we will not have a show probably in the near future. This is going to wrap itself up here, so this is it for us for a little bit. But obviously there's a show coming from JB's Kitchen in probably a month or so, so stay tuned for that. And if there's any breaking news, or if we decide, hey, let's do a show anyway, you'll see it, you'll find it. And that's what we love about you guys, that you are such fans of our content. The teams are, I can tell you that, they know who we are, both teams here, and that's national caliber teams that weren't in our regions coming in before this year, that now we've expanded and they know who we are. So we do appreciate that. We do not take that for granted. Happy holidays. We'll see you, though, tomorrow on the Stagg Bowl pre-game show, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 Central, and we'll give you a lot of information and excitement during that show.